You want a what? Professor Zixnorp's eye stalks quivered in disbelief, all 7 of them focusing intently on the human student before him. Sarah shrugged, her nonchalant gesture a stark contrast to the alien's barely concealed horror. I said I want to study with Rex. He's been a great help with my xenobiology coursework. Now, dear reader, you might be wondering why our esteemed Professor Zixnorp, holder of 17 degrees from the most prestigious universities in the Galactic Federation, was about to have an aneurysm. Well, let me enlighten you. Rex wasn't your average study buddy. No, Rex was a Vorpal Beast from the depths of Necron 4, a planet so deadly it made Australia look like a petting zoo. But... The professor sputtered, his normally eloquent tentacles flailing in distress. Rex is a highly dangerous predator. He's here for research purposes only, under strict containment protocols. Sarah raised an eyebrow, a gesture that never failed to confuse her alien instructors. Yeah, and he's also got a knack for molecular biology. You should see his chromatophore demonstrations. They're to die for. The professor's skin paled to a sickly chartreuse at her choice of words. To die for, indeed. Rex's species was responsible for more scientific expeditions ending in tragedy than peer review rejections. Miss Thompson, Zixnorp said, trying to regain his composure and some semblance of authority. I'm not sure you grasp the gravity of the situation. Rex is from a death world. His planet makes your Earth look like a... What's that human expression? A walk in the cake? Sarah snorted, a sound that made the professor flinch. It's a piece of cake, Prof. And yeah, I know all about death worlds. I'm from one, remember? Ah yes, how could anyone forget? Humans, the galaxy's newest upstarts, hailing from a planet that by all rights should have killed them eons ago. Instead, they'd thrived, evolving into a species that viewed mortal peril as a mild inconvenience and deadly predators as potential pets. Besides, Sarah continued, oblivious to her instructor's internal crisis, Rex and I have a lot in common. We both enjoy a good hunt, have a taste for spicy food, and agree that Professor Klang Vuzt's lectures on quantum entanglement are a fantastic cure for insomnia. Zixnorp made a mental note to warn his colleague about the potential threat to his career, and possibly his life, posed by a bored human Vorpal Beast duo. Miss Thompson, while I appreciate your unique approach to interspecies cooperation, I must insist that you find a more conventional study partner. Perhaps someone less likely to disembowel you over a minor disagreement? Sarah's eyes lit up with that terrifying gleam that all her instructors had come to fear. It was the look that preceded what the faculty had started calling human incidents. But Professor, think of the research opportunities. Rex and I have already started a comparative study on the hunting techniques of apex predators across different death worlds. We're calling it Claws, Jaws, and Human Ingenuity, a cross-species analysis of getting shit done. Zixnorp felt a headache coming on, which was impressive considering his species didn't even have a centralized nervous system. He briefly considered retiring early and taking up something less stressful, like deep space exploration or antimatter juggling. Miss Thompson, But Sarah was already halfway out the door, her enthusiasm leaving a wake of destruction in the form of scattered datapads and one very frazzled alien professor. Thanks for the chat, Prof. I'll make sure to credit you in our paper. Oh, and don't worry about Rex's containment protocols. I taught him how to use the keycard system last week. He's really quite dexterous with those tentacles of his. As the door slid shut behind her, Professor Zixnorp slumped into his chair. All 17 of them. Being a multi-limbed alien had its perks. He reached for his emergency stash of hyper vodka, a concoction potent enough to strip the paint off a starship hull. Humans, he muttered, pouring himself a generous glass. If the Vorpal Beasts don't kill us all, these Deathworlders and their study sessions surely will. Little did the good professor know, but Sarah and Rex's unlikely partnership was just the beginning. Across the campus, other humans were making similar connections. In the botany lab, Jake was teaching carnivorous plants from Venus 9 how to play fetch. Over in astrophysics, Maria had somehow convinced a sentient black hole to help with her thesis on warping spacetime for fun and profit. The Galactic Federation's education system would never be the same. And as for the humans, well, they were just getting started. After all, in their eyes, the universe was one big playground, filled with fascinating new friends to meet, no matter how many teeth, claws, or reality-bending powers they might possess. As Sarah made her way to Rex's containment area, she couldn't help but grin. Just wait until they hear about our plans for the Intergalactic Science Fair, she mused. Rex's acid spit will make for one hell of a volcano model. And so, Another day dawned in the grand adventure of human education among the stars. The faculty trembled, the students cheered, and somewhere in the depths of space, the collective consciousness of the universe couldn't help but wonder. What in the name of quasars had it gotten itself into by letting these humans off their little blue death ball? In the grand tapestry of cosmic education, sometimes it takes a human to teach the universe a thing or two about thinking outside the box, even if that box is labeled, "Danger, deadly alien predator inside." As the sun set on the sprawling campus of the Galactic Federation University, casting an eerie purple glow across the quantum-locked lawns, our intrepid human student Sarah was just getting started with her unconventional study session. "All right, Rex," Sarah said, tossing a meaty treat to the Vorpal Beast. "Pop quiz time. What's the primary difference between carbon-based and silicon-based life forms?" Rex, a writhing mass of tentacles, razor-sharp claws, and more teeth than a dentist's nightmare, let out a series of clicks and gurgles that would have sent most beings running for the nearest escape pod. Sarah, however, just nodded sagely. "Exactly. The electron configuration and bonding properties. You're getting good at this, big guy." Now I know what you're thinking. How in the name of Andromeda's left armpit can she understand that murder squid? Well, dear reader, that's the beauty of human ingenuity. Sarah had rigged up a neural translator using spare parts from the robotics lab, a bit of chewing gum, and what she swore was definitely not stolen tech from the xenolinguistics department. Meanwhile, across campus, Professor Zixnorp was holding an emergency faculty meeting. The room was a veritable United Nations of alien species, all united in their shared bewilderment and low-key terror of their human students. "Colleagues," Zixnorp began, his eye stalks drooping with exhaustion. "We have a situation. The humans are, well, they're humaning again." A collective groan echoed through the room. Professor Klangvst, a gaseous being who communicated through puffs of scented vapor, released a cloud that smelled suspiciously of defeat and stale coffee. "What is it this time?" wheezed Professor Gloop, a gelatinous mass of highly educated protoplasm. "Don't tell me they've made friends with the quantum singularity in the physics lab again." Zixnorp's silence was damning. "Oh, for the love of—" Gloop began, but was interrupted by a loud crash from outside. The assembled faculty rushed to the window, tentacles and pseudopods pushing against each other in their haste. What they saw made them question their life choices, their career paths, and in some cases, the very nature of reality itself. There, in the courtyard, was Jake from the botany department, riding atop a massive mobile carnivorous plant from Venus 9. He was wearing what appeared to be a cowboy hat, and whooping with joy as the plant snapped at floating holographic targets. "Yeehaw!" Jake's voice carried through the night air. "That's it, Audrey III. Show 'em how we do it back on the ranch." Professor Chlorophyll, the head of the botany department and herself a sentient fungal colony, began to emit spores of distress. "That plant was supposed to be cryogenically frozen. How did he—" "Don't ask," Zixnorp cut her off. "You'll sleep better not knowing." As the faculty watched in horrified fascination, Maria from astrophysics strolled into view. She was deep in conversation with nothing they could see. But the way space seemed to bend and warp around her suggested she was accompanied by something that had no business being on a university campus. Or in this dimension, for that matter. "So you see," they heard her say to the void, "if we apply these principles to faster-than-light travel, we could revolutionize interstellar transportation. What do you think?" "Oh, that's a great point about the potential collapse of causality. But hear me out." Professor Quark, the esteemed head of astrophysics, felt his atoms begin to vibrate with anxiety. Is she discussing FTL theory with a sentient black hole?" "I believe so," Zixnorp replied, his voice hollow with resignation. "And if I'm not mistaken, they're planning to co-author a paper." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans, barely out of their cosmic diapers, were rewriting the rules of the universe faster than the faculty could keep up. It was impressive, terrifying, and more than a little irritating. "What are we going to do?" Professor Gloop burbled, his gelatinous form quivering with concern. Zixnorp turned to face his colleagues, all 7 eye stalks focusing with grim determination. "The only thing we can do, my friends, we adapt, we learn, and maybe, just maybe, we start taking notes." As if on cue, a distant explosion rocked the campus, followed by the unmistakable sound of human laughter, and what could only be described as the purr of a very satisfied Vorpal Beast. "Right," Zixnorp sighed, reaching for his datapad. "Who wants to start the incident report this time?" And so, another night fell on the Galactic Federation University, where the lines between education and chaos had long since blurred. The humans were here to stay, bringing with them their unique brand of madness and innovation. The universe, it seemed, would never be the same. But perhaps, just perhaps, that wasn't such a bad thing after all. After all, who said learning had to be boring? Certainly not the humans, and definitely not their ever-growing menagerie of deadly but oddly endearing study partners. As for the faculty, well, they were learning too. Learning that sometimes, the best way to handle the hurricane of human creativity was to simply grab hold and enjoy the ride. Even if that ride occasionally involved acid-spitting plants, domesticated singularities, and the occasional violation of the laws of physics. Welcome to higher education Galactic style. Please keep your tentacles, pseudopods, and existential dread inside the vehicle at all times. And whatever you do, don't feed the humans after midnight. Trust us on this one. As the chaos of the night settled into a low simmer, a new day dawned on the Galactic Federation University. The twin suns of the Zeta Reticuli system cast a warm glow over the campus, illuminating the aftermath of what the administration had optimistically labeled as enthusiastic extracurricular activities. Sarah, our intrepid human student, was already up and about, casually strolling through the quantum botany gardens with Rex the Vorpal Beast padding along beside her. The sight of a human and a creature that looked like the unholy offspring of a squid and a chainsaw walking side by side was enough to send the other early risers scurrying for cover. "You know, Rex," Sarah mused, idly scratching behind what she assumed was one of the beast's auditory organs. "I think we really made progress on our chromatophore-based quantum computing model last night." Rex emitted a series of clicks and gurgles that sounded suspiciously like agreement, his tentacles rippling with patterns that would have driven a lesser mind insane. "Exactly. And once we figure out how to stabilize the quantum state without accidentally opening a portal to the nightmare dimension, we'll be golden." Meanwhile, in the faculty lounge, a room that had seen more drama in the past month than a galactic soap opera, Professor Zixnorp was holding court. His fellow educators huddled around him like survivors of a particularly bewildering shipwreck. "All right, everyone," Zixnorp began, his eye stalks drooping with the weight of responsibility and lack of sleep. "Status report. How are we all holding up?" Professor Gloop oozed forward, his gelatinous form rippling with what might have been excitement or indigestion. "Well, the good news is, the humans in my xenobiology class have made unprecedented progress in understanding non-carbon-based life forms." A tentative murmur of approval rippled through the room. "The bad news," Gloop continued, his voice bubbling with trepidation, "is that they've started a petition to classify themselves as honorary silicone-based life forms because, and I quote, 'it would be really cool, dude.'" The murmur turned into a groan. Professor Klangst puffed out a cloud of exasperated vapor. "That's nothing. The humans in my quantum mechanics class have started a betting pool on who can entangle the most particles before lunch. They're calling it Schrödinger's kegger." As the reports continued, each more outlandish than the last, a pattern began to emerge. The humans, it seemed, were not content with merely learning about the universe. They wanted to poke it, prod it, and possibly take it out for drinks afterward. Just as Zixnorp was about to call for order, the door to the faculty lounge burst open. In strode Jake, the botany student, his cowboy hat askew and a manic grin on his face. "Howdy, professors. Hope y'all don't mind me barging in, but I've got some exciting news." The faculty collectively held their breath, which was quite a feat considering some of them didn't actually breathe. "We've done it," Jake announced, spreading his arms wide. "We've successfully crossbred the Venus flytrap from Earth with the quantum phasing flora of Nexus Prime." A moment of silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Professor Chlorophyll was the first to find her voice. But that's impossible. The genetic structures are completely incompatible." Jake's grin widened. "That's what makes it so awesome. We call it the Schrödinger Snapdragon. It exists in multiple realities at once and can catch prey across dimensions. Want to see?" Before anyone could object, Jake pulled out a small pot from his backpack. Inside was a plant that seemed to flicker in and out of existence, its vibrant colors shifting through spectrums that shouldn't exist in this reality. As the faculty watched in horror and fascination, the plant suddenly lunged forward, its maw opening to reveal rows of impossibly sharp teeth. There was a flash of light, a sound like reality hiccuping, and suddenly Professor Quark's favorite datapad was gone. "Oops," Jake said, looking only slightly abashed. "Don't worry, it'll probably show up again. Maybe in this dimension, maybe in another. It's all part of the fun." Zixnorp felt a headache coming on. An impressive feat for a species that lacked a central nervous system. "Mr. Jake," he began, trying to keep his voice steady. While we appreciate your enthusiasm, perhaps it would be best if you continued your experiments under more controlled conditions. Jake's face lit up. Great idea, Prof. I'll just head down to the quantum containment lab and— No! The collective shout from the faculty was enough to shake the walls. As Jake was gently but firmly escorted from the lounge, his protests about stifling scientific progress fading down the hallway, Zixnorp turned to his colleagues. My friends, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of revelation. I believe we may need to rethink our entire approach to education. Professor Gloop burbled in agreement. Perhaps we should focus less on containing their chaos and more on channeling it. A thoughtful silence fell over the room, broken only by the distant sound of Sarah's voice drifting through an open window. No, Rex, we can't use the quantum realm to order pizza from parallel universes. Well, not yet anyway. And so, as another day unfolded at the Galactic Federation University, the faculty began to realize that, perhaps, just perhaps, they had as much to learn from their human students as the humans did from them. The universe, it seemed, was full of surprises, and humanity was determined to uncover them all, one impossible experiment at a time. Little did they know, but this was just the beginning. For in the depths of the astrophysics lab, Maria and her sentient black hole friend were putting the finishing touches on a theory that would rewrite the very laws of physics. And in the linguistics department, another human student was teaching a hive-mind entity the finer points of Earth memes and dad jokes. As the day wore on, the Galactic Federation University campus buzzed with the kind of energy that made quantum physicists nervous. In the central plaza, an impromptu gathering was forming, a sight that would have sent any sensible alien running for the nearest escape pod. At the center of this swirling vortex of human chaos stood Maria, her wild hair crackling with static electricity and a manic gleam in her eyes that screamed, Eureka! Louder than any vocal cords could manage. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings, she called out, her voice carrying across the plaza with the force of a supernova. Prepare yourselves for the greatest breakthrough in astrophysics since ever. The crowd, a motley assortment of curious humans and increasingly concerned aliens, pressed closer. Sarah and Rex lumbered up, the Vorpal Beast's tentacles rippling with what might have been excitement or indigestion. What's the scoop, Maria? Sarah asked, absent-mindedly scratching Rex behind what she hoped was an ear. Maria's grin widened to dimensions that would make a black hole jealous. My friends, we've done it! We've cracked the code of faster-than-light travel! A gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by excited murmurs and the distinct sound of several alien faculty members trying to quietly call their insurance providers. But that's impossible! Squeaked a trembling voice from the back. It belonged to a quantum probability moth, a species known for its ability to exist in multiple states of anxiety simultaneously. Impossible? Maria laughed, the sound echoing with the confidence of someone who had just told the laws of physics to sit down and shut up. My dear Moth, let me introduce you to my co-author and partner in crime against nature. With a theatrical flourish, Maria gestured to the empty space beside her. The air shimmered and warped, and suddenly, the crowd found themselves staring into what could only be described as the universe's grumpiest cosmic drain. Everyone, meet Bob the Black Hole. Bob, meet everyone. The assembled beings watched in fascinated horror as the fabric of reality puckered and swirled, forming what could charitably be called a face in the event horizon. Sup? Rumbled a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, carrying overtones of cosmic background radiation and a hint of Boston accent. Professor Quark, who had been desperately trying to blend in with a nearby quantum foam fountain, felt his atoms begin to vibrate with distress. Ms. Maria, he squeaked, his voice barely audible over the sound of his molecules trying to escape. Perhaps we should discuss this in a more controlled environment. Maria waved him off with the casual disregard of someone who had just rewritten the laws of the universe and was feeling pretty good about it. No time for that, Prof. We're on the brink of a revolution here. Bob and I have figured out how to manipulate space-time fabric to create stable wormholes. We're calling it the cosmic subway system. As if on cue, the air above the plaza began to ripple and tear. A swirling vortex of light and energy formed, growing larger by the second. Behold! Maria shouted over the growing wind, her hair now standing completely on end. Our first test run! The crowd watched in awe as the portal stabilized, revealing a Starbucks? Oops, Maria muttered, quickly consulting her equations. Slight miscalculation. That's the Starbucks on Alpha Centauri. Hang on, let me just... She fiddled with the device that looked suspiciously like a repurposed toaster oven, and the image in the portal shifted. Now they were looking at what appeared to be a beach on a planet with 3 moons and pink sand. There we go, Maria beamed. Who's up for an interstellar field trip? The human students erupted in cheers, while the alien faculty members began to seriously reconsider their career choices. Professor Zixnorp, drawn by the commotion, arrived just in time to see Sarah hoisting a surfboard. Where did she even get that? And preparing to leap through the portal. Wait! Zixnorp cried, all 7 eye stalks vibrating with panic. We can't just... But it was too late. With a whoop of joy, Sarah dove through the shimmering gateway, Rex hot on her heels. The other human students followed suit, their excited chatter fading as they vanished into the cosmic ether. Zixnorp turned to Maria, his exoskeleton pale with shock. Miss Maria, do you have any idea what you've done? Maria's grin was positively incandescent. Of course, Professor. We've just turned the entire universe into our campus. Think of the research opportunities. As if to punctuate her point, Jake's voice echoed from the portal. Guys, you gotta see this. The plants here communicate through interpretive dance. Zixnorp looked from the portal to Maria, then to Bob the Black Hole, who somehow managed to look smug despite being a cosmic singularity. And finally to his fellow faculty members. He took a deep breath, straightened his posture, and made a decision that would go down in galactic history. Well then, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. I suppose we'd better go supervise this field trip. And with that, Professor Zixnorp, esteemed xenobiologist and now apparently interstellar chaperone, stepped through the portal. The rest of the faculty, realizing that their students were now scattered across the cosmos, had no choice but to follow. As the last of them disappeared into the swirling vortex, Bob the Black Hole let out what could only be described as a cosmic chuckle. Humans, he rumbled to no one in particular. Gotta love 'em, never a dull moment. And so, the greatest, and quite possibly most dangerous, field trip in the history of the universe began. As the impromptu cosmic field trip unfolded across multiple star systems, the universe found itself in a state of bewildered amusement. On the pink-sanded beach of Triluna Prime, Sarah was attempting to teach Rex the Vorpal Beast how to surf. The sight of a multi-tentacled predator from the depths of a Deathworld hanging 10 on an iridescent wave was enough to make even the most jaded spacefaring species do a double-take. That's it, Rex! Sarah cheered as the beast managed to balance precariously on the board, its tentacles spread wide. Now just watch out for the... Her warning came too late as Rex collided with what appeared to be a floating jellyfish the size of a small moon. The resulting tangle of tentacles, surfboard, and bioluminescent goo created a light show visible from 3 neighboring planets. Meanwhile, on a gas giant in the Andromeda Galaxy, Jake had discovered an entire ecosystem of floating plants that communicated through a complex system of aromatic spores. He was in botanical heaven, furiously taking notes while simultaneously trying not to inhale too deeply. This is amazing, he exclaimed to Professor Chlorophyll, who had reluctantly followed him through the portal. These plants have developed a form of chemical social media. It's like Twitter, but with less toxicity and more actual toxins. The professor, her fungal form struggling to maintain cohesion in the planet's dense atmosphere, could only emit spores of resigned acceptance. Back on Alpha Centauri, Maria and Bob the Black Hole had set up shop in the aforementioned Starbucks, much to the confusion of the local clientele. They were deep in discussion about the finer points of manipulating cosmic strings to create a universe-wide public transportation system. So if we adjust the quantum foam density here, Maria mused, scribbling equations on a napkin, we could potentially create express lanes between major galactic hubs. Bob, who had somehow managed to order a venti black coffee, extra dark, hold the matter, rumbled in agreement. Yeah, kid, but we gotta watch out for rush hour traffic. You don't want to know what happens when you get a pileup in subspace. At a nearby table, Professor Quark was stress-eating his way through a plate of asteroid-shaped cookies, muttering about the imminent collapse of causality and the dire need for more robust insurance policies. Zixnorp, trying his best to maintain some semblance of order, had set up a makeshift command center on a rogue planet drifting between galaxies. He was frantically trying to keep track of all the human students and their increasingly improbable adventures. No, Mr. Thompson. He sighed into his comms device, all 7 eye stalks drooping with exhaustion. You cannot just borrow a neutron star for your science project. I don't care if you promise to return it in mint condition. As he disconnected the call, another urgent message came through. It was from the Galactic Federation's Department of Education. Professor Zixnorp, came a stern voice. We've received reports of unprecedented cosmic disturbances originating from your institution. Care to explain? Zixnorp looked around at the chaos unfolding across multiple dimensions. Sarah and Rex were now surfing temporal waves through the Cretaceous period. Jake had somehow crossbred a Venus flytrap with a sentient nebula. And if his sensors were correct, Maria and Bob were in the process of reorganizing the entire local group of galaxies into a more aesthetic and user-friendly configuration. He took a deep breath, straightened his posture, and replied with all the dignity he could muster. It's merely a small, interdisciplinary field study, sir. Nothing to worry about. Everything is under control. As if to contradict him, a nearby supernova lit up the sky, its explosion spelling out, "Humans were here," in 27 different languages. Right, said the voice from the Department of Education, heavy with skepticism. We'll be sending an inspection team shortly. Try not to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics before they arrive. As the communication cut off, Zixnorp slumped in his gravity chair. He gazed out at the vast expanse of the universe, now irrevocably changed by the curiosity and chaos of his human students. A small smile crept across his face, or at least the part of his anatomy that passed for a face. Despite the madness, despite the danger, despite the very real possibility that they might accidentally unravel the fabric of reality, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. These humans, with their reckless creativity and boundless enthusiasm, were pushing the boundaries of knowledge further than anyone had dreamed possible. Yes, they were turning the universe upside down and inside out, but in doing so, they were discovering wonders beyond imagination. As he watched Sarah and Rex ride a wave of chronons back into the present, narrowly avoiding a paradox, Zixnorp made a decision. He opened a channel to all faculty members scattered across time and space. "Attention all educators," he announced, his voice steady and clear. "New directive. Don't just supervise. Participate. Learn. And for the love of all that's holy in this universe and the next, try to keep up." With that, he closed the channel, stood up, and straightened his academic robes. There was a universe of knowledge out there, and by the stars, he was going to help his students explore every last corner of it. As he prepared to jump into the nearest temporal vortex, carefully calculating the trajectory to avoid any awkward meetings with his past or future selves, Zixnorp couldn't help but chuckle. "Humans," he muttered fondly. "Can't live with them. Can't let them unsupervised in a lab for 5 minutes without them redefining the nature of reality." And with that, he leapt into the swirling chaos, ready for whatever mind-bending, physics-defying adventure awaited. After all, in a universe where anything was possible, the only true failure would be to stop learning. Little did he know, but this was just the beginning. For somewhere in the vast expanse of the cosmos, a group of human exchange students had just arrived at the Interdimensional Academy of Improbable Sciences, armed with nothing but their wits, their insatiable curiosity, and a contraband coffee maker. The multiverse would never be the same. As Zixnorp hurtled through the temporal vortex, the universe continued its rapid evolution into what could only be described as a cosmic playground for overly enthusiastic humans and their increasingly bemused alien companions. Meanwhile, at the prestigious Interdimensional Academy of Improbable Sciences, a portal shimmered into existence in the grand atrium. Out stumbled a group of human exchange students, looking slightly singed and smelling faintly of ozone. "Wicked landing, Emily!" exclaimed a lanky boy with glasses, high-fiving his companion. "I think we only broke 3 laws of physics that time." Emily, her hair a wild tangle of curls seemingly defying gravity itself, grinned as she tucked away a device that looked suspiciously like a modified waffle iron. "Thanks, Aiden. I call it the quantum waffle hopper. It makes interdimensional travel a piece of cake. Or waffle, I guess." The atrium, a vast space that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, fell silent as the resident scholars, beings of pure energy, sentient mathematical equations, and creatures that defied description, turned to stare at the newcomers. A being composed entirely of swirling fractal patterns floated forward, its voice a symphony of prime numbers and irrational constants. "Welcome, humans, to the Interdimensional Academy of Improbable Sciences. I am Dean Infinitus. We've been expecting you, though not quite so soon, and certainly not via unauthorized quantum pastry equipment." Aiden stepped forward, trying his best to look dignified despite the interdimensional jet lag. "Greetings, Dean Infinitus. We're the exchange students from Galactic Federation University. We, decided to arrive early." For extra credit. The dean's fractal pattern swirled in what might have been amusement or existential dread. I see. And I suppose the recent reports of a human-induced reconfiguration of the local galactic cluster have nothing to do with your eagerness? The humans exchanged guilty looks. Emily cleared her throat. In our defense, sir, we had no idea Maria's black hole boyfriend was so sensitive about his event horizon. The galactic makeover was really just a grand romantic gesture. Before Dean Infinitus could respond, alarms began blaring across multiple dimensional planes. A holographic display materialized, showing a familiar scene of chaos unfolding across the universe. Oh no, groaned Aiden, watching as Sarah and Rex surfed a wave of pure probability through the Horsehead Nebula. They've discovered the Uncertainty Principle Surf Championship. Dean Infinitus's fractals pulsed with concern. This is unprecedented. The very fabric of reality is being stretched to its limits. We must act quickly to contain this enthusiasm. Emily's eyes lit up with that dangerous gleam that sent shivers down the spines, or equivalent structures, of faculty members across the cosmos. Contain! But Dean, don't you see? This is the greatest opportunity for cross-dimensional research in the history of, everything. She pulled out a whiteboard from her seemingly bottomless backpack and began scribbling furiously. If we can harness the chaos energy generated by human curiosity, we could potentially create a perpetual motion machine for scientific discovery. The other human students nodded enthusiastically, already pulling out an assortment of gadgets that looked cobbled together from spare parts and sheer audacity. Dean Infinitus watched in fascinated horror as the humans began setting up what appeared to be a combination of a particle accelerator, a cappuccino machine, and a disco ball. But the regulations, the safety protocols... Aiden patted the dean's fractal shoulder reassuringly, his hand passing through a few extra dimensions in the process. Don't worry, sir. We've got this under control. Now, who's ready to redefine the nature of reality? As the humans set to work, their enthusiasm infectious, even the most esoteric of interdimensional scholars found themselves drawn into the whirlwind of activity. Quantum equations danced with chaos theory, while probability wove itself into new and impossible patterns. Meanwhile, across the universe, Zixnorp emerged from the temporal vortex just in time to see Jake successfully teaching a group of sentient stars the art of interpretive dance. The resulting cosmic ballet was rewriting astronomical charts across 17 different galaxies. Zixnorp sighed, all 7 of his eye stalks drooping in unison. I suppose I should be grateful they haven't accidentally created a new Big Bang. Yet. Little did he know that back at the Interdimensional Academy, Emily was putting the finishing touches on a device that promised to do just that. But, in a totally controlled and absolutely safe manner, we promise. As the universe braced itself for the next wave of human-induced impossibilities, one thing became clear. The line between education and cosmic revolution had not just been blurred. It had been enthusiastically erased, redrawn in crayon, and then folded into an origami swan that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The age of improbable science had begun, and at its heart were a bunch of humans armed with nothing but curiosity, a blatant disregard for the impossible, and a really good cappuccino machine. Somewhere in the depths of the cosmos, the sentient black hole known as Bob chuckled to himself. Humans, he mused, his voice echoing through the fabric of space-time. Give 'em an inch, and they'll redesign the entire cosmic yardstick. Gotta love 'em. And with that, the universe settled in for what promised to be the most entertaining and educational epic in its long and improbable history.